Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Rosie here, and I play Dead by Daylight, so you don't have to. I'm gonna bite my tongue, guys. I'm gonna bite my tongue and admit to you that I was wrong about something. Yeah, I know. Shocking, right? Yeah. I was wrong about something. We talked about this in the stream the other day, and we did like some hard numbers and stuff, and we put up a case. We put up a case, all right? And we'll talk about the case again shortly. But I'm just gonna say I was wrong about something. After 2 days of labbing it, I actually really like Jolt. I know, right? Multiple fucking years of saying this is garbage. And again, you have to understand, lads. You have to understand my perspective. I'm a vet, lads. I remember what it was called, Surge. I remember what it's called, Surge, guys. Would you like to read Surge? Let's read Surge, bro. The perk has been retired. Surge applies. You put basic attacks all gens within 32 meters of you instantly explode. Start regressing. 8% regression penalty. 40-second cooldown. Change. Okay. Oh, we'll deal with that in a minute. Oh, it's and that's what it used to be. It used to have a really shit cooldown, and we gotta remember at the time it was at the time like Pop and Ruin were meta, and then Call of Brine was meta, and then Ruin Undying was meta, and Call of Brine and Overcharge, and then Eruption was good and much better than it. And then Scorch Hook Pain Rezo was better than it. Like, there was so many, like, this perk truly never had a time in the spotlight. It was always just truly wretched trash when you compared to everything else. And so, lads, then it became Jolt, and then we got some change history. Buff, remove the cooldown, and then it got a shadow buff in 7.00, where survivors now scream in addition to being interrupted by the exploding gen. That shadow buff is actually super cool. That's actually super cool. Affected by Jolt, also be affected by... who cares? It's bad. And that's pretty much all the trivia. Okay, so like, it's still got that basic attack clause, which I wish they would just get rid of that. But I still wish they would just get rid of that. But here is where I'm going to tell you that I was wrong about something. About the perk. Okay? The thing about the perk these days is, again, they've nerfed like everything. They've destroyed most of your regression options. So, and this is one of those options that wasn't yet destroyed. And one other thing about, like, we did the math and talked about Pain Rezo. I think Deadlock is the one you guys are really... I don't think anybody was fighting with me about Pain Rezo. I think it was Deadlock. Everyone was saying was the bad one, and I've started to take Deadlock out. I think I'm moving away from Deadlock. I don't think we're going to use that anymore. I think you guys were right. But due to the fact that it doesn't have a cooldown anymore, okay, there's something that we left out. Okay? There's something that we left out that the perk now has an increased ability to help you do. Okay? And again, we talked about how, like, if you do the hard math, 8%, it takes, like, what? 8 times 9 is 72. It takes, like, fucking, what? Over 11? Like, it takes, like, 12, 13, maybe, procs of Jolt to give you what Pain Rezo gives you. Okay? That's what we said. But there's a few things we're leaving out here. Okay? And we'll go into those things right now. Jolt... I still argue, this is still true. If you down Survivor, pick up Survivor after you proc the Jolt, carry Survivor to Hook, and then throw them on Hook, Jolt ain't gonna do much for you. The number's not big enough, okay? There will be some situations where Jolt will just save a gen. It does happen. Those aren't the most consistent things in the entire world. Like, or one Jolt proc is going to save a gen. Very rarely does that happen. But what I'm going to tell you is that this isn't too impressive until you consider what its potential application is. As you know, we've been labbing slugging the past few days. And the funny thing is, this perk actually has a very good synergy with slugging. Extremely good synergy with slug strategies and slug play styles. Especially since we just talked about how, holy shit, hooking people is so trash and so fucking slow. Really, very shit fucking hooking is. So if you down somebody early game and you fucking get a jolt proc, especially if you get the shadow buff where the screen notification happened, that shadow buff they added, if you are getting nice information, why the fuck you stopping to hook this survivor? Especially if it might be one of the injured ones and you're good at identifying who it is based on the screams, right? Which you could be good at that as killer. Why the fuck you stopping to hook? Jolt is telling you to get your fucking ass over there and stop the gen. So you can do some more manual pressure, right? You can do manual pressure and get that guy off the gen and potentially save it. You can actually save the fucking thing if it's right by you, and Jolt procs, and you get an extra hit before you hook, or God forbid, maybe you have a high save count, you can actually get the down and get a double Jolt proc, which will knock 16% off of the gen, and then you basically got over half of Pain Rezo's value because Jolt fed into itself. The fact that the perk can now feed into itself is actually super good and something that some of the other perks can't actually do. There's a certain smoothness to the perk. There's a certain smoothness that it has when you get a good flow going, and it can help you. And again, the range is 32 meters. You read that, you go, what? It's not that big. But it's like sometimes you'll get a proc and you go, damn, Joel hit all the way over there? Jesus. Now, the perk still is map dependent. The perk still isn't very good on some maps. And again, sometimes the strategy will be to primarily take hooks, and Joel won't be going off tons a match. But here's another thing that we've kind of left out. When it blows up the 8%, this is something that we left out, and I left it out too. When the generator blows up, okay, it blows up and 8% ticks off. If there wasn't a survivor on it, you don't get the scream notification. But there's one other interesting thing. The gen also starts regressing. Jolt in your kit is the closest thing in this game to a ruin that is not tied to a hex. It's the closest thing in the game. It's like, yeah, it's base regression, and base regression's still kind of trash. But if you have a good slug game going, that base regression isn't nothing. And if you can adequately get some pressure, that base regression, you'll be surprised that it can delete a piston or something. Even one piston of base regression deletion is super huge. It's super huge. That's like what, 25% of the gen? If you can delete one whole piston, that gives you more time for the perk to feed into itself and blow up another 8%, right? The fact that Jolt kind of functions as a ruin that they can't cleanse if you get the ball rolling and can adequately pressure, it's super nice. And then, of course, it's got the other added effect of, holy shit, 8% could also stack with the Pain Rezo perk, and then you could blow up 32% of a gen, right? No, 33%. If you get a Jolt and Pain Rezo stacking, you just blew up 33% of a gen. So it also is a great partner with Pain Resonance. You can use them both, where it's like Jolt can feed into a slug build, but it's like, okay, you got 2 Jolt procs, there's nobody here to slug. Now it's time to take your Pain Rezo hook and blow up either the gen that's closer, or maybe you're like, you like the amount of like plays where you can get like 3 gens with Jolt, that's 24% of total gen progress. You can blow up total half of a gen in like one play. Like, the actual math on Jolt, if you, like, I want to go through some of my matches and analyze I know it procced a lot, and analyze it specifically. Just how much regression value are we getting from just procs, and then how much other added regression value are you actually getting? If you can have a good flow with going and actually manually pressure the survivors, the perks added ability to kind of function as a ruin can actually be super obnoxious. Of course, you'll have to get another down for it to function as ruin again, but it's like, okay, well, the other argument against Jolt is that Eruption seems to power creep it. Eruption seems to power creep it because it's whenever the survivor's put into the dying state, it's not tied to a basic attack, and Eruption also does more value. But the problem with Eruption is, you gotta kick the gens. You gotta kick them. There are times in this game, lads, where you don't have time to go stop and kick the gen. You don't have time to do that. So yes, you sack range and you sack a bit of regression, but what you get in return is consistency. You get consistency. A perk that is good for slugging in 3 gens, and etc., etc. Like, there's so much utility that the perk actually has that I do see why it's the most used perk in the game. It's a general perk. It's not teachable. You can just grab it, and it's one of the best options you have. Is the perk meta? Maybe on some smaller maps and on some characters it could be. It's definitely not meta on every character, probably not. But what I am going to say is that this perk is much better than I thought it was. Whereas before it's like, oh, it's just some fucking basic ass regression perk that knocks 8% of a gen. Like, who cares? Useless. It doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't do anything for you if you do like a pure hook play style, kind of, sort of. Like, if you're trying to hook, and it does have some camping and tunneling utility, it does, but it's like, the way, like, if you're, it doesn't have utility if you're trying to, like, it doesn't have enough power, I guess is the word behind it. Like, if you play where, if you're trying to, like, section off a map, section off a 3-gen, it doesn't exactly have enough power to kind of be worth the slot. But if you are taking a more active role in your games, slugging's a bigger part of what you're doing, and you actually get some procs out of it, it could be the thing that wins you the whole fucking game. It really can. It actually can do that. And again, that's why, like, the builds I run it in, sometimes it's not the most consistent option. So it's like, sometimes I'll be bringing Pain Rezo and Jolt, where it's like, one game it'll be a Pain Rezo game, and the other game it'll be a Jolt game. Like, you just have to go with the flow of what you're doing. But it's like, that added option for killers is actually very good. And the fact that you can get a bit of extra oomph around the map, and the fact that, like, the downs you get may have a bit extra utility and save you a bit of time. It's like, I don't have to go kick the gen on top of the gallows on Dead Dog Saloon because Jolt knocked it off for me. I can just go with my next play. That added smoothness to killer is something that we really haven't had since the Ruin days, where it's like, I don't got to go kick that gen because it's blown up already. So I mean, those are just some of the thoughts I've had, like, after labbing the perk. And again, basic attack is kind of annoying, so some M2 killers won't get as many procs with it. But it's like, I mean, on Nemesis, I'm still bringing it. On these M2 characters, again, I completely disagree with the fact that all M2 characters should just never run M1 shit. I completely disagree with that. Completely. It's like, even if you want to say it's not their meta, like, Wesker can still use this. Maybe Wesker wants Eruption a little bit more. I don't fucking know. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Nurse can't use it, sure, but, like, I guess 110 Nurse can. But lol cow. So it's like, unless you're like, I have to try Artist. I want to lab art. I want to try Artist a bit more too. Like, but it's just the notion of, oh, this killer has an M2 that damages, so they shouldn't ever run M1 perks. I completely disagree with that notion. I'm a believer that save will make every killer's life easier, and I'm thinking that this can make everybody's life easier. So again, is it meta though? I mean, probably not on every killer, probably not on every map. But it's just like, what I thought was like a low mid-tier option in this game is actually significantly better than I thought it was, and I do understand why it has the high usage rate that it has, if that makes sense. So I'm glad y'all brought the perk up again and just kept throwing it in my face and kept telling me that it's not actually that bad, because eventually my stubbornness, I tapped out and I fucking ran it, and now I really like it, and now you're probably going to see it a lot more in my streams, because it's not even about, it's just, you might even argue it's a placebo. It could be, but like, when it works, it feels like it's actually doing a lot of shit for you. It really does. Tracking, everything. The only thing it lacks that Ruin, the old one, didn't have is, well, okay, the only thing it lacks that the old Ruin has is the 200% regression. It does the tracking that I liked out of old Ruin. Like, it functions very similarly to Hex Ruin. It really does. And Ruin, I continue to believe, when Ruin and Pop was the meta of the game, and you were running like Corrupt, Ruin, Pop, and then maybe it saved the best for last for Chase, that was the healthiest meta the game's ever had. It really is. It really is. That's why I wish they would just buff base regression to like 150% or something, and then Ruin can just straight up just come back into the game. That'd be super nice. And Call of Brine, these perks can just come back into the game. It'd be nice. Okay, I guess that wouldn't be too good for Jolt, but who knows? Who knows, lads? So that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to get my thought dump out here before I go to bed because I got work tomorrow again. So lol, I'm starting my jab back up. So I just wanted to make this one final video, admitting that I was wrong, and this perk is actually very solid. And I appreciate everybody continuing to argue with me about it because y'all have won at last. All right, GG's lads. I'm getting the hell out of here.